name is Helen Argeru, and I would love to tell you a little bit more about this very important shift that happens for the Enneatype 2. Now, we all have a little bit of a 2 in us, and this is why this video can be used by absolutely anybody, and especially women, and of course, very even more specifically for a 2 Enneatype. Now, many of us also have the Enneatypes that cross over and into the 2 Enneatype, either in the defensive position and or in the kind of light radiant position, as in we become much more of a 2 when we are higher functioning, less neurotic, and or we might have it in the shadow feature where we become a bit more like a 2 and maybe hide out inside the overgiving nature of a 2. Now, some of the most beautiful insight from 2s who become more conscious and more contributory in a healthy way is that they discover compassion is for themselves as well as for others. And they're no longer hiding out in this kind of martyrdom type concept. And they may even realize at times when they are exploiting others in their overgiving or in their empathy or in their compassion that goes out to other people. Now, what's so important for us today is how we can really all learn to shift into a very specific self-love type practice that also has enough space and room in it to be selfless. And this is what 2s teach us ultimately, is this really amazing cosmic compassion that we can have for all of the universe, all the beings that have been created, all the people that we understand and all those we don't, all the parts of ourselves that we respect and all the parts of ourselves that we don't. And how do we do this? I'm going to suggest to you today 4 very specific turnarounds. I call this the way to shape shift out of the toxic 2 into the divine 2. So how are you going to shape shift your 2-ness or your Enneatype 2 shadow qualities if you are an Enneatype 2, and or if you are moving on the Enneatype symbol or grid in and out of the 2 shadow aspects? How can you shape shift when you are in that shadow aspect into this more complementary version of the 2 nature? Well, there are 4 turnarounds, as I said. I'm going to talk to you first about the whole power of being self-serving. Then I'll talk to you about energy and the awareness of energy, consciousness of energy. The third is about selection, how to be selective and why. And then we're going to talk about power and what power truly is and how a 2 typeness really needs to understand power in a new way. So before I get into these, let me just tell you that my name is Helen. As I said, Argeru is my surname, but I shortened it to AHA because that's also my brand. Helen AHA is now the name of the website. You can also find me at helenaha.com, and you'll see there that I do executive coaching, and Enneagram does feature in one of the tools that I use in the coaching work that I do. I also mentor and I do psychotherapy. I'm very interested in the style of feminine intelligence, and so I've developed a network called the Women of Truth Network. In Greek, we call that Yin Aletheia because a lot of the events were born from the island of Cyprus, a place where the goddess Aphrodite was said to have been born from the froth of the sea. And so we do retreats and special kinds of reclamation work for the divine feminine energy. And this is something I share with you because it's through a lot of this work and the research of over 100 women who are global female leaders that led me to understand more about the 2 at the deepest level. It seems that all of us have been programmed in some way to trade off humility with pride and or compassion for others with self-sacrificing. And this is especially true for women. So I have a lot of deep dive research on this and have written a book about it, The Biggest Lie Women Believe and The Woman of Truth, where I feature the stories of these global female leaders, some of them, to really go deeper into what I call toxic femininity. And I think the 2 is something of the nature of this toxic femininity, this need to perhaps sideline a part of ourselves or our needs at the deepest level, or perhaps even to never believe that our needs are important because of injury in earlier childhood, even if we are a different type of Enneatype, we might still feel quite illusionary strategies to take care of ourselves, never catch up with what we truly need, because somewhere in our societies, we've also gotten this whole marriage between humility and pride, or humility and compassion and selflessness and self-sacrifice kind of mixed up. And so my 4 tips for you today are going to straighten that out, whether you're a woman, an Enneatype 2 or not. But knowing this context of how women have been seen to self-abandon, and of course anyone who's a people pleaser does the same. Seeing that, we know that there is a level of self-worth or self-value that we need to upgrade in order to do this successfully. And that's what these 4 tips are about. So let's get into the first one. Start self-serving. And by this, I mean that every single person deserves their own compassion. And more so if you're a 2, more so if you have a people-pleasing type nature, and if you are at times confused about whether you should take care of yourself as priority as opposed to others. There is a whole strange way that we've understood self-sacrifice in the world. And of course, it's not really for our highest good. It's only something we can do or should do if we are saintly or divinely enlightened, and we draw on the power of the divine and then pass on our needs to the divine, and then perhaps then we can be kind of serving of others in a kind of compassionate way that doesn't deplete our own resources. But if we are human beings without this enlightenment component, it's really a delusion of martyrdom to think that you should be just serving others without serving yourself. So I say tip number 1 is start serving yourself. You deserve your own compassion. Examples of this are like filling your cup before you pour out. So if you really don't want to be in the midst of social space and the potential judgment or criticism or frustration or irritation that happens when you're with certain people, or you feel that it's a bit toxic for you to be there, by all means, consider taking care of yourself first before you make the adjustment or decide to be flexible enough to go and wing it or just tolerate that space that you feel is not necessarily good for you. There are many other ways that this can happen. You might be very concerned about your children, and you might actually identify so much with the role of being a mother that you forget that, of course, you need time for yourself. This is one of the hardest things for mothers to do. One of the biggest complaints is that mothers and many women lose themselves in relationships. So again, if you're a 2 or a woman that has this kind of self-abandoning type quality or behavior that you sort of forget about yourself, consider again that you need to start learning to serve yourself, because serving yourself is a very important way to really truly understand the value of serving others, and the quality of your service to others depends on how well served you are first yourself. Otherwise, it's like you're handing out some depleted kind of offer to another person that hasn't really come from the highest or best quality part of your personality. So learning to do this can really take some mentoring, some coaching, maybe like strategic practices that you put in place. Just consider that even at work, it's very important to learn to be serving yourself as much as your boss. Many people self-abandon, they don't put down boundaries in their careers and can end up burnt out, even chronically ill, or just really stuck in places for a really long time where getting over that inertia becomes way more difficult than before, because they've stayed in these toxic states of pouring out their energy to other people, to everything they think is expected of them, but not really finding the ways to serve themselves. So it's a little bit more than self-care. It's an attitude, a disposition, a commitment, a level of devotion. So if there's something you want to do as a ritual, my tip for you is to go out and buy a ring that you really love. Put it on one of your pinky, next to pinky ring fingers, and do a small symbolic ritual where you say that you are committed to yourself and that you bring compassion to yourself as well as others. And really use this ring as a reminder that you are actually practicing serving yourself. My second tip for you is energy consciousness. It's important to master energy consciousness. And by this, I mean the awareness of your own energy is a very important part of how you move in the world on purpose and take care of your power, your destiny, your choices, and all the successes that you are hoping to achieve. If you don't master your energy, if you're not aware of your energy, it's very hard to regulate your emotions correctly, and it's very hard to cleanse and restore yourself correctly. Now, there are many spiritual teachers. If you like this style of work, I recommend you explore and research a little bit more around your aura. This is nothing less than an electromagnetic field of cells and atoms that are activated by you entering that space. This becomes your auric field, and your auric field is your energy. It gets cluttered. It collects dust. It collects bad vibes. It collects toxic energies. Every time you get ill or you're not feeling well or you self-abandon or self-sacrifice, you are affecting your energy field, and you're actually creating a little bit more of a heavy, stale atmosphere around you. This is why you need to cleanse your body, which also then cleanses all these atoms around you. And as you enter the space, you begin to bring something new and restored into the air around you. So when you walk through a room and you're in a good mood, your energy is supportive to the space. If you walk through a room and you're really angry because somebody kicked your dog right outside your house and you felt this animosity and aggression and you're still thinking about it, you walk through the space and your energy that you contribute around you is toxic and negative. Some people can feel that from you, some people not so much. But the point is still that this is your energy. And to master it, you will need to become more conscious of how you're feeling, how you are speaking, and what you are doing. And of course, then to find the way to regulate, process, talk about, cleanse, restore, and rejuvenate your energy whenever you have gone into an imbalance or into a negative state. Now, some people have practices that do this. Maybe psychotherapy really works well, coaching can work really well, mentorship can work really well. But if you have residue, long-standing tough situations that are still bothering you in your mind, in your memory, you will need to go and work on these so that they can get cleared from your energy. They tend to hang around in your energy field when you haven't processed them enough. So you might then collect more of them. And this is something you want to start to take care of. So mastering your energy is really about cleansing and also learning to protect your aura, your energy field. This magnetic field of resonance around you needs some protection, some conscious intention sometimes to actually be taken care of. And by this, again, we can return to maybe point number one, where we start learning to be serving ourselves by making decisions that take care of us. We might again do the same thing with this tip number two. In other words, if you know that going to a certain person's house who maybe has a lot of substances or addictions or a way of sharing a lot of negativity, or perhaps they like to attract drama, or that they struggle with things, and you're really not in a space where you can work through that happily, and you're not in a maybe strong space, maybe you don't feel so good that day, maybe you've just come out of an illness, maybe you've just been overworked, then it's good to protect your aura. And this is exactly why we mentioned point number one, tip number one, because on a deeper level, it is actually then protecting your aura to not collect all these different kind of atmospheric vibes and to have you feel heavy again when you move into these new spaces. So you have some decisions to make every time you choose to interact, every time you choose a certain project, every time you choose a certain group of people that you want to hang out with. even stimulation that you have online, platforms that you visit, movies that you watch. You always have your magnetic field of resonance interacting. So start to master this energy consciousness of checking in to see, what am I really needing right now? How is my energy right now? Is it middle? Is it lower than middle? Or is it high? And what do I need to regulate it? And those are going to be my tips for you then, is to think about a vibe check. So every time you need to make a decision where you're not so sure what to do, check first, where is my energy? Is it low, medium, or high? And what would be the best thing for me right now? To stay medium and to move to high? Is this certain experience or place I'm going to visit going to help take my energy higher? Is there any chance that it could drop my energy? And if so, perhaps I need to change my decision and not go. If it's going to keep me on the same level of where my energy is and or increase it, it's a great decision to attend. And now tip number 3. Tip number 3 is pretty easy. It's all about being selective. You can totally see why I would say this. And this is something I would say to absolutely anybody. But if you are an Enneatype 2, or you have a people-pleasing nature, or you have ways where you might self-abandon or forget about your needs, or perhaps even diminish your needs or minimize them, you need to start learning how to be much more selective about who and where you're going to give your energy. Because you might actually find out that you're attracted to people unconsciously, habitually, that draw your energy or draw your attention or need a lot of things. It's been amazing through my career to meet many twos who, for some reason, tend to attach themselves to people that really don't have a lot of the things they do. And it's totally understandable when it's a parent-child relationship, or when the power dynamic is such that it's justified somehow that this person might be a boss to someone who's an employee. But when the roles are a bit reversed and the power dynamic is out of sync, it's not really a good idea to hang around too much with these kinds of relationships. This is why I say be selective. Choose your friends carefully. Who is going to be an optimizing friendship? A friend that optimizes you. Where can you invest your energy? Who will you choose carefully that's going to really support you, that's going to equal you, at worst, equal you, and then at best, optimize you, help you, support you, enlighten you, teach you, guide you, inspire you, so that you don't fall into the trap of being the one that has to nurture, being the one that has to give, being the one that feels obliged to give, because inside that is a secret nemesis. It's a secret manipulative layer of needing always to have the power differential in your favor, needing to be the one who has the power so that the other one is powerless. And I cannot tell you how many times it's become clear to me, working on my two-ness, looking at the research I've done and working with clients in session, how often we can turn a situation to look like we need to be there for the other person, when in fact, the other person does not do what they need to do in order to be there for themselves, or learn a new skill in order to manage, or draw a boundary so that their life is better, or even say no for the sake of being independent and not becoming codependent on the relationship with someone with a 2 nature. It's so important for you to watch this carefully in your life, because if you're not selective, you'll just unconsciously, automatically act out whatever feels most comfortable. And we all know that when we stay in that comfort zone, it's very difficult to actually manage to make these big changes that we need in order to grow and to expand who we truly are. After all the work of Enneagram typology is to learn more about your essence nature, your true nature, the special way that you and all of what you're busy with helps to optimize you, helps to actualize you. You don't want to be hanging around in these kind of automatic, unconscious type patterns for too long and use them to justify why you just can't get where you need to go, or why everyone doesn't really treat you well, or acting out more and more victimhood in different ways, justifying what's not working. You want to start creating opportunities for yourself to grow, expand, and reach out of your comfort zone. So you are going to have to become discerning. You need to become much more distinctive in what is the defining difference between building a friendship with this person versus how I'm feeling when I'm building a friendship with this person. Any kind of dis-ease, any kind of dissatisfaction, or kind of irking feeling that it might not be very good for you deserves a little bit of analysis. So start to look at how are you going to be more careful about who your friends are, who your acquaintances are, who you're going to work for, who is actually helping you to equal the power dynamic between you and them, and how can you perhaps be the one that gets your needs met, and how will you then learn to express your needs and receive when people are giving to you, because that is your specific learning, nothing else. Your work is to totally shift this dynamic of giving to others and learning how instead to have the relationship support you, give to you as much as you give to it. My fourth tip for you now is taking power. Now, many twos or many two-ness inside of us is a kind of quality that tends to keep us a little in the background, or maybe it even sort of sets us aside from being the person who has the major attention on them, or maybe even the person that somehow has the power. This is not always true for all situations, but certainly there's a quality of a two-type nature that avoids and or sublimates, is a very fancy word we use in analytical psychology, but it's referring more to the kind of sidelining of one's own power. It's a very complicated mix of how this happens, because as we keep saying, a two-ness has within it a type of manipulation of trying to forefront the caring nature, the mothering nature, the motherhood, compassionate, martyr-like position, and being there for others, contributing to others, supporting others, knowing how to do certain things, and then sort of putting that information out into the mix. And sometimes it's a very subverted way, quite an insidious way, difficult to detect, of really putting your own needs aside, but actually putting them all the way out in front so that you are actually the one who gets the power for being the helper. So when I say take power, I mean take power literally, take power consciously, and take power in a healthy way. Stop waiting for other people to give you what you need. Stop giving to others what you think they need so that they will start giving you what you need. Now is the time to learn how to take power. When it's your moment, step up and take your moment. When it's someone else's moment, let them be. Let them be left to their own devices to take power when it's their turn. Don't get too involved in where other people's needs or desires cross over with yours. Try to disentangle as much as possible and really just give yourself what you are needing. This is a lifetime's work for a 2 Enneatype. And of course, if you haven't started the journey, I encourage you to. And if you have and you're busy with it, congratulations, keep going. If you're learning about this for the first time, or if you see you have some of this quality in you, it will require a lot of deeper investigation to really see how you work with power and why it came to be that you subvert or you kind of accommodate others in order to somehow get a little bit of power. There is inevitably a part of you that believes that it's not your time or that you're not worthy. And I think the most interesting version of all of this is when you might believe that somehow you have too much, and so you need to give out to others more than you get back. This is a kind of guilt-ridden, complex rearrangement of power. And again, it can be totally false. Others may have in areas that you have not yet perceived. Others might be totally more powerful than you in certain ways that you have never considered possible. Others might have power in being silent. Others have a journey to take in acquiring what they need for their own needs. And you are the one who keeps subverting that or distorting that or deflecting from that when you step in to give, or when you step in to know, or when you step in to nurture. Try instead to get a little bit more clear on how you are the one who needs certain things, certain times, and how you can find ways to become more direct in asking for that, or taking it when it's there, or receiving it when it arrives. This is the kind of work you can do with a therapist for sure. And of course, someone who's highly trained in the Enneagram coaching space. So these are my 4 tips for you. Start self-serving, master your energy consciousness, become selective, and start to take power honestly and consciously. It's been such a joy to share all this with you. If you want any more information or any more tips or tools, you can always come and visit me. And of course, you always have the option to work with me as your coach on this type of Enneatype work, this quality in the personality, or anything else that you might be interested to investigate. That was me, Helen R. Giroux. Remember, the website is helenaha.com. And if you're ever interested in reaching me on LinkedIn, I respond a lot to LinkedIn requests. I'm there with multiple networks doing many interesting projects. And I'm a drummer as well, a musician, a frame drummer and a djembe drummer, and use that for drum therapy, and work a lot with leaders and women of truth speakers who specialize in health thought leadership. It's been a great pleasure working with you. If you need to know anything more, just reach out. And if not, good luck working on these 4 tips. Start serving yourself, master your energy, be selective, and take power. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.